The alarm screamed to the bridge of the Unity's Hope as Admiral Veltar watched his fleet fall apart. Red warning lights painted everything the color of blood, while his tactical officer shouted numbers that made no sense. "Sir, the plasma cannons are down to 12% power and dropping fast." Another Coalition ship exploded in the distance. The Void Swarm moved like a living shadow across space, their ships looking more like giant insects than anything built by intelligent hands. When they touched a Coalition vessel, the lights went out. When they stayed longer, the ship itself began to dissolve. Veltar had seen this happen 47 times in the past 3 hours. "What about the energy shields?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "They're feeding on them, sir. The more power we pump into the shields, the stronger these creatures get." This wasn't how war was supposed to work. The Coalition had fought other species before. There were rules. You fired energy weapons at each other from a safe distance. You used plasma shields to protect your ships. You targeted engines and weapon systems, not entire crews. These void creatures broke every rule and seemed to enjoy doing it. The tactical display showed 12 Coalition fleets scattered across 15 star systems. All of them were losing. The swarm didn't just destroy ships. They consumed them. They ate the energy that powered Coalition technology, then moved on to the next target like locusts stripping a field bare. "Admiral, incoming transmission from High Chancellor Morvain." The Chancellor's face appeared on the main screen, and Veltar felt his heart sink. Morvain looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. His usually perfect diplomatic robes were wrinkled, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Admiral, I'm ordering all remaining fleets to fall back to the outer colonies. We're going to try something desperate." "Sir," the Deep Void Protocol. The bridge went silent. Every officer knew what that meant. They would broadcast an open distress call into deep space, begging anyone who might be listening to come help them. It was the kind of thing you only did when your civilization was about to die. "Chancellor, surely there must be other options. What about the Zilani Federation? The Crystalline Assembly?" Morvain's laugh was bitter. "The Zilani stopped responding to our calls 6 days ago. The Assembly sent one message. We are relocating to safer territories. Everyone is running. Admiral, we're alone." The transmission cut out, leaving Veltar staring at empty space where his leader's face had been. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, trying to keep the ship running as void creatures press against their failing shields. 3 days passed. 3 days of running from system to system, watching colony ships full of families disappear into the hungry darkness. The Coalition's most advanced weapons, developed over thousands of years of technological progress, were useless. Their energy-based civilization had no answer for creatures that turned their own power against them. Veltar was reviewing evacuation plans when his communications officer suddenly sat up straight. "Sir, we're getting a response to the Deep Void Protocol." "From who?" "Unknown species. The signal is strange. Very primitive transmission methods. They're using frequencies, so basic our computers almost missed it. Put it through." Static filled the bridge. The signal was rough, full of interference and background noise that suggested whoever was transmitting didn't have very good equipment. When the voice finally came through, it spoke in accented Coalition standard. "This is Captain James Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call." Veltar exchanged glances with his officers. None of them had heard of this Terran Defense Force before. The voice continued. "We've analyzed your situation from your broadcasts. Looks like you've got parasitic energy feeders giving you trouble. We've dealt with similar problems in our sector." "Similar problems?" Veltar couldn't keep the hope out of his voice as he responded. "Captain Mitchell, what weapons do your people possess? How do you fight creatures that consume energy?" There was a pause, filled with more static. When Mitchell spoke again, Veltar could hear something like amusement in his voice. "Admiral, we don't use energy weapons. Never needed them. Give us your coordinates, and we'll show you how humans fight." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Veltar looked around at his officers, all of whom seemed as confused as he felt. "Humans?" asked his tactical officer. Never heard of them. Neither have I, Veltar admitted. But right now, they're the only ones willing to help. 2 days later, long-range sensors detected the approaching fleet. What they saw defied everything the Coalition thought they knew about space travel. Human ships were coming, and they looked absolutely terrifying. The human fleet looked like it had been built in someone's garage using spare parts and bad ideas. Admiral Veltar stared at the tactical display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Where Coalition ships were sleek curves of polished metal with glowing energy conduits, these human vessels were angular blocks of dark steel covered in scratches, dents, and what looked like bullet holes. "Sir, are we sure these are military ships?" asked Commander Rixal. "They look more like cargo haulers that got into a fight." The largest human ship, apparently called the Edinburgh, was a massive rectangle with engines that belched actual fire instead of the clean plasma streams Coalition ships used. Smaller vessels flanked it in a formation that made no tactical sense. They were too close together, with no energy shields creating protective barriers between them. "Maybe they don't know proper fleet tactics?" suggested the tactical officer. Captain Mitchell's voice crackled through the communications system with enough static to hurt Veltar's ears. "Coalition fleet, this is Mitchell requesting permission to come aboard for a tactical conference. Fair warning, our docking systems are pretty rough compared to yours." "Of course, Captain. Base 7 is prepared to receive you." What docked with their ship 20 minutes later looked more like an armored box with engines than a proper shuttle. It clanged against the docking bay walls with enough force to shake the deck plating. When the airlock opened, Captain Mitchell stepped out wearing what appeared to be metal armor covered in scratches and scorch marks. He was tall and pale, with short brown hair and scars across his jaw that suggested he'd been in more than a few fights. Behind him came 2 other humans, a woman about the same age with blonde hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and a younger man with dark skin who carried what looked like a briefcase made of steel. Admiral Veltar, James Mitchell, Terran Defense Force. His handshake was firm enough to make Veltar wince. "This is Lieutenant Katie Watson, my weapons officer, and Sergeant Tom Bradley, our tactical specialist." Veltar gestured toward the conference room. "Captain, I must admit we're curious about your capabilities. Our weapons and shields are useless against these void creatures. What makes you think yours will work?" Mitchell's smile was cold. "Admiral, your people build a civilization based on energy. Clean, efficient, elegant. These void things figure out how to eat energy, so now you're defenseless. And humans, we never had that problem. Earth is a nice place. Our homeworld spent millions of years trying to kill us with poison air, killer weather, and animals that hunt us for fun. We learned to fight back with whatever worked." Lieutenant Watson stepped forward and placed her steel briefcase on the conference table. When she opened it, Veltar saw weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum. Metal tubes with chemical triggers. Explosive devices with timer mechanisms. Sharp blades designed for cutting. "These are projectile weapons," Watson explained, lifting what she called a rifle. "They fire metal slugs using controlled chemical explosions. No energy required except what's already stored in the ammunition. But surely your ships use energy weapons for space combat." "Nope." Sergeant Bradley activated a holographic display that showed cross-sections of human ships. "Our main guns are magnetic rail systems that launch tungsten rods at high velocity. Ship-to-ship missiles use chemical warheads. When we really need to hurt something, we ram it with our ships and detonate nuclear charges." Veltar felt his blood grow cold. "You deliberately crash your ships into enemy vessels?" "Only when necessary," Mitchell said casually. "Our escape pods can handle the impact. We've got good life support systems and redundant everything. Human engineering is built for things going wrong." Commander Rixal leaned forward. "Captain, with respect, these sound like incredibly primitive tactics. Surely there are more elegant solutions." Mitchell's laugh was harsh. "Commander, elegant gets you killed when you're fighting for survival. We learned that lesson the hard way over thousands of years of warfare on Earth. You use what works, and you don't worry about looking pretty while doing it." Watson pulled up another display showing human battle formations. "Our ships don't use energy shields because shields can fail. Instead, We build thick armor plating and redundant systems. When something breaks, we fix it with tools and spare parts. When weapons run out of ammunition, we switch to backup weapons. What if those fail too? Veltar asked. Then we get creative, Bradley said with a grin that showed too many teeth. Humans are really good at improvising. The conference room fell silent as the Coalition officers tried to process what they were hearing. These humans fought like barbarians, using crude weapons and tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. But they were also the only species willing to help. Finally, Admiral Veltar spoke. Captain Mitchell, when can your forces engage the enemy? We're ready now. Just point us toward the void ships and get your people out of our way. This is about to get messy, and we don't want you caught in the crossfire. Outside the viewport, the human fleet waited in the darkness, their ships looking like predators preparing to hunt. The first human attack shattered everything Admiral Veltar thought he knew about space combat. He watched from the bridge of Unity's Hope as Captain Mitchell's fleet charged straight into a void swarm formation that had destroyed 3 Coalition fleets in the past week. Sir, the humans aren't using any evasive maneuvers, reported his tactical officer. They're flying directly at the enemy's ships. And their weapons are firing continuously, added Commander Rixal. No energy buildup, no charging cycles. Just constant projectile streams. On the display, human ships looked like flying fortresses spitting fire and metal. Their weapons didn't glow with energy buildup or create elegant plasma streams. Instead, they launched endless streams of tungsten rods that punched through void ship hulls like they were made of paper. When the first void creature latched onto human ship Manchester, Veltar expected to see the familiar sight of systems shutting down as the parasite drained the ship's power. Instead, something impossible happened. Coalition fleet, this is Captain Reynolds on the Manchester, came a calm voice over the radio. We got boarders, switching to emergency power and manual controls. The Manchester's lights went out. Its engines stopped glowing, but the ship kept fighting. How is that possible? Veltar asked nobody in particular. His answer came when Lieutenant Watson's voice crackled through the communication system. Admiral, we're designed to fight without power if necessary. Mechanical controls, chemical weapons, and pure stubbornness. These void things don't know what to do when there's no energy to drain. The Manchester fired its weapons using backup systems that required no electrical power. Its crew operated manual targeting systems, while void creatures crawled through their corridors, trying to find energy sources that simply weren't there. But what happened next made Veltar's blood freeze. All hands, this is Reynolds. Ramming speed. The Manchester accelerated directly toward a void ship twice its size. At the last second, escape pods shot out from the human vessel, like seeds from a dying plant. The collision created a fireball that lit up half the battlefield. By the ancestors, whispered Rixal. They sacrificed their own ship. Negative, came Mitchell's voice over the radio. Reynolds and his crew are fine. That's standard tactics when conventional weapons aren't enough. We build our ships to be expendable and our crews to survive anything. The battle became a nightmare of twisted metal and chemical explosions. Human ships rammed void vessels, detonated nuclear charges at point-blank range, and deployed weapons that filled space with clouds of razor-sharp debris. When void creatures boarded human ships, the humans didn't retreat to defensive positions like Coalition crews would. They hunted the invaders. Colonel Robert Davies led the most terrifying assault Veltar had ever witnessed. When void creatures broke into the Glasgow, Davies and his Marines didn't try to contain them. They chased the parasites through the ship's corridors with projectile weapons and bladed tools, using their own vessel as a weapon, venting atmosphere on Deck 7. Davies reported over the radio while gunfire echoed in the background. These things need some kind of gas exchange to function. Let's see how they like hard vacuum. The human crew worked in environmental suits while the void creatures suffocated in the airless corridors. When that wasn't enough, Davies flooded entire sections with industrial chemicals. Pumping corrosive agents into Deck 9, he announced casually, as if discussing the weather. The hull can take it. These parasites can't. Veltar watched in horror and fascination as human crews turned their own ships into death traps. They used life support systems as weapons, flooded compartments with toxic gases, and created environments so hostile that even the void creatures couldn't survive. Captain Mitchell, Veltar called over the radio. Your people are destroying their own ships to fight the enemy. That's the idea, Admiral. We learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to make the battlefield so dangerous that nobody can survive it. The difference is humans are really good at surviving in places that should kill us. The tide of battle turned when the humans deployed what they called area denial weapons. Instead of targeting individual void ships, they filled entire sections of space with spinning metal fragments, chemical clouds, and radioactive debris. They turned the battlefield into an extension of their deadly homeworld. All coalition ships maintain minimum safe distance, Mitchell warned. We're about to make this space uninhabitable for anything that isn't used to living in hell. The Void Swarm, creatures that had consumed entire civilizations, began to retreat. They couldn't adapt to weapons that didn't use energy and tactics that embraced mutual destruction. As the enemy fled, Veltar realized that humans didn't just fight wars. They weaponized the concept of survival itself, turning every battle into a contest of who could endure the most punishment while still fighting back. Admiral, came Mitchell's voice, that's how Deathworlders fight. We make everywhere else as dangerous as home. 3 weeks into the campaign, Admiral Veltar thought he had seen everything humans could do. He was wrong. The briefing room aboard the Unity's Hope felt smaller than usual as Colonel Davy stood before a mixed group of Coalition and human officers, his scarred face serious as he explained what he called biological warfare protocols. Gentlemen, ladies, and honored Coalition representatives, Davies began, we've reached the point where conventional weapons aren't enough. The Void Swarm is adapting faster than we expected. Time to show them what 4 billion years of evolution on a death world really means. He activated a holographic display, showing a cross-section of what appeared to be a void creature. Our scientists have been studying the enemy biology. These things evolved in clean space, feeding on pure energy. They've never encountered biological warfare because most civilized species consider it too barbaric to use. Lieutenant Watson stepped forward, carrying what looked like standard human equipment. Admiral Veltar, your people fight clean wars with clean weapons. You had thousands of years of peace to develop elegant solutions to your problems. Earth never gave us that luxury. What do you mean? Veltar asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. Davies pulled up another display, this one showing Earth itself. The planet looked beautiful from space, but the data streaming alongside the image told a different story. Atmospheric toxicity levels that would kill most coalition species in minutes. Weather patterns that could flash freeze or incinerate entire continents. And life forms that seemed designed specifically to hunt and kill everything around them. Our home world spent billions of years trying to murder everything that lived on it, Davies explained. Poison atmosphere, killer weather, predators that hunt for sport instead of food. Everything that survived had to become lethal just to see another day. Watson picked up a small spray bottle from the equipment table. This contains engineered bacteria that we developed from organisms found in Earth's deep ocean trenches. These bacteria eat organic compounds and reproduce faster than the target organism can repair damage. You're going to use diseases as weapons? Commander Rixau looked horrified. We're going to use life as a weapon, Davies corrected. Every living thing on Earth learned to be toxic, poisonous, or corrosive just to survive. We've taken those natural defenses and made them better. The humans began deploying weapons that defied everything the Coalition thought they knew about warfare. They released clouds of engineered microorganisms into space, bacteria designed to break down the organic components of void ships. They deployed viral agents that attacked the creatures' neural networks, causing their own bodies to turn against them. But the most disturbing revelation came when Davies led a boarding party onto a void-breeding ship. Coalition observers maintained safe distance. He warned over the radio, this is going to be unpleasant. Davies and his team wore nothing but standard environmental suits and carried simple chemical sprayers. No energy shields, no plasma weapons, no advanced technology at all. They walked through corridors filled with void creatures that should have torn them apart. Instead, the creatures began dying just from being near the humans. Sir, what's happening? Veltar asked over the radio. Our blood is toxic to them, Davies replied casually as he stepped over another dead creature. Millions of years of evolution on a world that constantly tried to poison us. Our biochemistry is so hostile that we're walking biological weapons. Watson's voice came over the communication system as she led another team through a different section of a ship. Admiral, every human carries chemical compounds in their bloodstream that would kill most galactic species. We evolved to survive in conditions that are lethal to almost everything else. The tactical displays showed human boarding parties advancing through void ships like a plague. Creatures that had consumed entire civilizations were dying from simple exposure to human presence. The invaders were literally too toxic for the enemy to handle. This is impossible, whispered Rixal. How can any species evolve to be naturally poisonous? Captain Mitchell's voice answered from the Edinburgh, which had been holed in 23 places and was running on backup life support. Commander, Earth is a death world. Every plant, every animal, every microorganism is either predator or prey, usually both. Humans survive by becoming more dangerous than everything trying to kill us. When the Void Swarm adapted to biological weapons, humanity's response was even more terrifying. They began making space itself uninhabitable, detonating stellar charges that filled entire systems with radioactive debris. They released self-replicating machines that converted asteroids into clouds of toxic metal dust. Captain, Chancellor Morvain called during one tactical briefing, "You're destroying whole star systems." Mitchell's expression never changed. "Chancellor, we're making them uninhabitable for the enemy. The difference is, humans can survive in these conditions. We evolved in hell. We're just bringing a little piece of home to the battlefield." The void creatures began retreating faster, fleeing from humans like they were plague itself. 6 weeks after the first human ship had arrived, Admiral Veltar stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Coalition headquarters, watching something he had never expected to see again. Construction crews were working around the clock to repair the orbital platforms, and for the first time in months, civilian ships were returning to the system. The Void Swarm was gone. Not destroyed, but driven away like wild animals fleeing from a forest fire. The creatures that had consumed 3 entire civilizations had retreated to the galactic rim, apparently deciding that this part of space was too dangerous for them. Human engineering teams worked alongside Coalition crews, and the difference in their methods was still shocking to watch. Where Coalition engineers used precision energy tools and elegant solutions, the humans welded metal plates with chemical torches and fixed problems with hammers and spare parts. "Admiral," came a familiar voice behind him. Veltar turned to see Captain Mitchell approaching, still wearing the same scarred combat armor he had worn during the war. The human looked tired but satisfied, like a predator that had successfully defended its territory. "Captain, I was just watching your people work. Your methods are so different from ours." Mitchell joined him at the viewport, looking out at the repair operations. "Admiral, we learned a long time ago that the best solution is the one that works when everything else fails. Fancy technology is great until it breaks down. Then you need something reliable." Below them, a group of young Coalition citizens were training with human Marines in the station's gymnasium. Veltar had been watching these sessions for days, fascinated and horrified by what he saw. The humans were teaching alien teenagers to fight with knives and chemical explosives, preparing them for wars where advanced technology might not save them. "My government has been discussing your offer," Veltar said. "This Terran defense pact you mentioned. And many of our leaders are afraid. Your methods are so violent, so primitive. They worry about what we might become if we learn to fight like humans." Mitchell was quiet for a long moment, watching a young Coalition officer practice hand-to-hand combat with Sergeant Bradley. The alien was clumsy and slow compared to the human, but he was learning. "Admiral, can I tell you something about Earth?" "Of course." Every human child grows up knowing that their world is trying to kill them. Toxic storms that can strip flesh from bone. Animals that hunt us for sport. Plants that release poison just from being touched. Most kids learn to fight before they learn to read, because that's what it takes to survive another day. Mitchell pointed to the training session below. But we also learned something else. We learned that the only way to survive is to help each other. When the storms come, we share our shelters. When the predators hunt, we fight together. When someone gets hurt, we carry them home. I'm not sure I understand. Admiral, humans aren't violent because we enjoy it. We're violent because our world taught us that sometimes violence is the only way to protect the people we care about. Every human soldier knows that war isn't about glory or conquest. It's about making sure the people back home get to live another day. A young coalition officer approached nervously, interrupting their conversation. He was barely out of training academy, with the kind of soft features that suggested he had never seen real combat. Captain Mitchell, I've applied for the next training cycle on Earth. Mitchell turned to study the young officer carefully. What's your name, son? Ensign Kethral, sir. I want to learn to fight like humans do. Why? The ensign straightened his shoulders. Because next time something like the Void Swarm comes for us, I want to be ready. I want to be able to protect my people. Mitchell smiled, and for the first time since Veltar had met him, the human's cold eyes showed warmth. Good answer. Fair warning, though. Earth training has a high casualty rate. We don't go easy on anyone, not even ourselves. I understand, sir. No, you don't, but you will. Mitchell clapped the young officer on the shoulder. Report to Lieutenant Watson tomorrow. She'll get you started on basic survival protocols. As the ensign walked away, clearly excited and terrified in equal measure, Veltar asked a question that had been bothering him for weeks. Captain, I still don't understand why you came. You could have ignored our distress call. Your people had nothing to gain by helping us. Mitchell leaned against the viewport, looking out at the stars where the Void Swarm had fled. Admiral, every human grows up fighting monsters. Some are real, like the predators that hunt us on Earth. Some are abstract, like hunger or disease or loneliness. But we all learn the same lesson early, which is, when someone asks for help fighting monsters, you help them, because someday you might be the one asking for help. Chancellor Morvain's voice came over the station's communication system. All personnel, we received confirmation that the Void Swarm has retreated beyond the galactic barrier. Coalition space is secure. Cheers erupted throughout the station, but Mitchell remained quiet. Admiral, this isn't over. Creatures like the Void Swarm don't give up. They'll be back someday, probably stronger and smarter. And when they return, Mitchell's smile was sharp as a blade. When they return, they'll find humans waiting for them. And next time, we won't be fighting alone.